on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 is with us. Everything going okay in Beech Grove today?
Nice and quiet, which is a good thing, and no dog fights or no people fights, so it's really quiet here, which I think that's good.
I just saw a story from Channel 13 where a Greenfield woman has been alleged to have set her ex-boyfriend's home on fire because she says she loaned him $60 so he could buy marijuana, and she wanted her – no, wait a minute. That's not the best. She wanted her personal lubricant back.
It goes in so many different directions. The one good thing is I didn't hear any Beech Grove connections.
No. This is in Handcuff County right here in Greenfield.
The further south you go, the more iffy it gets.
Now, easy.
So we're getting into your neighborhood, are we?
My God, no. You haven't even we'd have to go a long way south to get into my neighborhood. Yeah. Which stands to reason. But she was out $60 and she also wanted her personal lubricant back.
So when she didn't use the one she got her fire?
Yeah, allegedly. Yes. But she says that she didn't purposely do it. She thinks she dropped a cigarette when she broke into his house.
That's a great defense, isn't it? I wasn't going 110. I was only going 95. Okay, right.
Yeah. I don't know. Even if this is true, I may have tried to make something up here. I don't know about the $60 of my lubricant. That's tough. Anyway.
Yeah, you can go. Yeah, I was going to say something about what you can pay for lubricant. But we're not going there.
So Mike Chappell is with us. Outside of the whole O'Creaky story, which we've been talking about for not all in all, but been talking about occasionally the last 48 hours, this has been an incredibly quiet summer, late spring and summer for the Colts, which is historically a very good thing. What do you think they continue to move in and out of here, tryouts with safeties? You think Chris and company are unhappy with that position right now, or they're still trying things, or uneasy about just how many injuries have been suffered at that position over the past couple of years?
I think they're doing their due diligence so that if the time comes in August, September, remember in October last year they had to go out and get Mike Mitchell, because of all the injuries with Farley and everyone else. You've done your homework, and that's what you do. You do that work now. I'm not saying that I'm going to sign this guy in the next 2 weeks, but I just think this is when you do your homework on veterans in case that happens. And again, that's a position that who can blame them? Most of your top safeties have injury issues on their resume, so I think it would be a dereliction of duty if you're not doing that. So, barring injury, I like most of the positions that they've got, but injuries are an issue at a bunch of positions. Safety, how about tight end with Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle? Everything points to being ready for training camp, and they probably will be, but you don't know. And when you're talking a hip with a player, you just don't know. So this is when you have to be ready, so when something happens, when something like Gerald McCoy becomes available, you've done some work and you know what you might want to do. Or if somebody gets hurt, either the next week, which has happened. Clayton Gathers got hurt. Was it as a rookie? He's had issues. He broke a bone in his foot maybe before his rookie training camp or whatever it was. And Anthony Costanzo last year, remember, he has a hamstring injury working out on his own in July. So you simply have to be ready to move if you have to. And when you've already done your homework, you're not, doing rush work for 2 or 3 days to see you can have to replace whomever goes down.
It's Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. There's no concern whatsoever regarding the calf of luck. Well, you're all good with it.
Well, to say no concern, I think is wrong. You got to have a little concern just because. Anytime your franchise quarterback is the face of your franchise and the guy that makes you go isn't practicing, it's simply an issue. Now, then the argument is how big of an issue. I don't think it's a big issue now, I would like to see him practice next week just because. But I tell you, and I thought he was going to practice next week. And then when Frank Reich kind of mentions, well, Andrew and I talked, and listen, if you're not out there next week, it's not earth-shattering. It's not, a big news story. Well,
was that in preparation? Is that preparing you guys for him not to be there? Yeah.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
He's never really come out and say, yeah, but and again, Frank Reich is too smart to say, I expect Luck to be back whenever. It's always we're going to reevaluate, and that's what you have to do because if he had said 3 weeks ago, we expect Luck to be out there in week 3, and then he's not, well, then he's roasted. So I understand why they do that, but I really read into that the way he said that preparing everybody if he's not out there, and hopefully, we're supposed to have Luck talk one day next week, probably Wednesday, and maybe we can get some other update on it, but everything that he says, well, if this is regular season, if there's a game on Sunday, he'd be out there. But as long as your quarterback's not there, it's got to be an issue because he's missing practice time. And, the only person that thinks practice is more important than Andrew Luck is Peyton Manning. That's just how they're wired. So it's not ideal at all. And the only thing I'd say on that, though, is he missed all of off season last year. Didn't throw a football until, mid-June?
And that's the reason why we don't make more out of it. Exactly.
Right. And then he throws 39 touchdowns and, 4,000 yards and all that. So, although, keep in mind, he had a very slow September as far as winging the ball. He threw it a lot, but, that's when he was getting out a large yards per attempt. But this is like last year at this time when we're talking shoulder, not calf. And from the media standpoint, you just wanted to see him throwing before they go dark in July, just because. Then it's not a story. Well, we didn't get that. So I'd like to see him out there at least doing something. But I just got the impression from the way I read, the way I read Reich is there's more likely that he won't be there than he will be out there.
Yeah, it's almost like considering the story that we had dealt with for a year, and certainly the story at this time last year. That was like Caddyshack, and I think this year is like Caddyshack 2. Just nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's like a bad sequel. I mean, nobody's really interested.
Well, and I've heard people say, "Well, that's why they brought in Chad Kelly." No, they didn't bring in Chad Kelly because of Andrew Luck's calf injury, and maybe they need Chad Kelly and all this. As far as I'm concerned, they can spin it how they want. Chad Kelly is a favor from Frank Reich to Jim Kelly, and that's all that is. I'm convinced of that, which is fine. But I'd like to see Luck out there. If we don't, life will go on. It's much better that it's a calf than a shoulder. When again, truth be told, we didn't know last year at this time when Luck would be throwing. So
yeah.
This is light years from that, but at some level it's still a concern. It has to be a concern.
Yeah, I'd agree. Anything else you're looking at as far as level of interest going into next week, and then obviously with the time they're going to have off before camp is underway in late July? Because the one thing that always sticks out to me is the level in which they have built, and that's something Chris Ballard has talked about, Mike, for a long time, is building, a high level of competition on this team,
right.
And it seems like that's what they have this summer, no doubt.
Well, yeah. Now, first, one thing is when people say, well, they go from OTAs to mandatory minicamp, it's the same thing. Nothing's going to change next week. It's mandatory, but they've had very, very good, 95, 100% attendance anyway. So from a structural logistics standpoint, next week is the same as this week. It's just called something different. And then once they're done Thursday, they're done for 5 or 6 weeks. But the competition, it really is interesting on how this is going to play out. We've seen the receiver situation where it's been Chester Rogers and Paris Campbell, and Reese Fountains had a good spring apparently. But if they only, and one thing that Frank Reich mentioned is, if we keep 4 or 5 receivers, some of us were thinking maybe they keep 6. But it sounds like in Frank's mind, the number's 4 or 5. If they only keep 5 receivers, if they only keep 4, it's really going to be tight. But keeping 5, I mean, you just do the math, and it's T.Y. Hilton, it's Devin Funchess, it's Paris Campbell, I think Deion Kane's going to make it because they really liked the way the kid played early last year before the injury. That's 4. So, the only way that changes is if Deion Kane opens up camp and the season on PUP, which I don't think they would want to do. But all of a sudden, the numbers game, you've got like 6 or 7 players, interesting players, vying for like one spot. So that'll be interesting. And there's a lot of positions like that linebacker.
Yep.
So I just, it's very, very interesting how they've done it. And that's a good thing. In the past, when as a media you could sit there and sort of come up with 53 and feel pretty good about it, that's not the case now. And it should be difficult. It should be hard for the coaches to make the evaluations. And barring injury going into camp, there's 4 or 5 positions where there's a ton of competition. And again, that's a good thing.
So Mike Chappell, he's of CBS 4 and Fox 59 on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. What did Luck hurt his calf working out on his own? Is that what they had said?
I got the impression from what we got out of Frank Reich. He said early in the off-season program. So I have the impression it was long with because they've been working out here since mid-April. I got the impression it was with the team. And I guess we could kind of maybe double check with Frank or Luck next week when we talk to him. But I got the impression it was working out with the team.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if it was on his own or with the team. But
he never really got very specific about it. And it was one of those where you could tell how it was going. Is you could ask him 10 different ways, and he heard it working out. That's all you're going to get, and that's fine. It didn't. No one pressed him on it, and I don't think it would have gone anywhere if we had pressed him on it.
Who do you think is going to be the most impactful rookies? Because certainly we saw that a year ago, and the leader of that inability was Darius Leonard. But who do you think may be in that category? What's your expectation going into the season from the rookie class of 2019?
I'm really interested to see how they use Paris Campbell. He's going to start out primarily in the slot, I think, because that's where he can really make plays and as a punt returner. But I think they want to try to expand his role. We're going to see them really try to maximize getting him the ball in space and letting him make plays, and that's kind of what they've been missing. I don't consider Ty that kind. Ty is more of a for on the run, maybe over the top type stuff. Campbell's a different guy. He's just different. And then Ben Banigou, I think they're going to try to it's funny. 1 week they rave on him because he's looking good as a pass rusher, and then this week he's looking pretty good as a defensive end. This is going to be a guy that they're going to really move him around. We've seen like New England and Kansas City with their defensive fronts. You don't know if they're playing 4-3, 3-4, 4-2-5. You just don't know. And that's kind of where these guys are going with the makeup of their personnel is these guys can play different roles, different spots. Maybe they play 3 safeties with Willis and Clayton Gathers. Maybe Rock Yassin gets in there. I just think with the personnel they've got, it's going to be really, really hard for us to say this is like Tony Dungy's 4-3. Because I don't think this is going to be Dungy's 4-3 in name only, because I think they're really going to be moving players around, showing different looks, and that's always a good thing. We were talking to Anthony Walker last week, I think it was. He said the second year in the system, what they're able to do is to kind of show one thing and then pre-snap get out of it and go into something else, which they really didn't have that enough knowledge of the defense to do last year. He's really excited what they can do. Again, with the players they brought in, they've got 4 or 5 players that, what are they? I mean, Naheem Hines is sort of that from last year.
It's almost like an NBA philosophy now. You just got players as opposed to just designations or positions. So.
Right. Naheem Hines, he's a running back, but he caught 63 balls last year. So I think that they're always looking for matchups on offense that benefit the Colts. And I think that's what they're going to try to do on defense is get teams looking at one thing, and then they bring in people for other areas. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch how Eberflus and Sirianni and Frank Reich use their personnel, because they've got a lot of versatile players.
Mike Chappell of CBS 4, Fox 59. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. All right, get back to work in the Grove. All right? Get the yard work going.
I'll keep things peaceful here. Today's my day to keep things peaceful. The rest of the week, they're on their own.
Well done. Thank you, Mike.
Later.
It's Mike Chappell on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Reds lose today 3-1